Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 734. Today we're talking about Brian Boru, High King of Ireland. This is coming out from Osprey Games, designed by Pierre Sylvester, who also did King is Dead, also from Osprey Games, as well as Wersindas Volk, a couple of games that I've enjoyed in the past from him. This is a 3 to 5 player trick-taking game / area control game, but that doesn't really describe the game at all. So it's a 3 to 5 player kind of area control game. Let's just jump down to the table, take a look at the mechanics, and then I'll kind of come back up here and tell you what I think. Okay, here is the main board set up, and you can see it's a map of Ireland divided in these different regions with these different colored locations on them. And these are the locations and regions that players are going to be trying to control throughout the game. And you can see we have discs here in the different player colors. You'll start with one disc, each in a different region that's chosen before the start of the game. And you can see a couple other things. Let's just zoom in a little bit here. So for example, you can see this southern Uinel is only kind of activated once there are 3 sort of cities or 3 locations that have had control over. And then at the end of the game, it's going to be worth 5 points. So each of the different regions here has kind of a threshold that needs to be met. So Connacht here, and excuse my pronunciation of this stuff, but if it has 5 locations here that are under control, then it'll unlock, and then it'll be worth 7 points to the person that controls the most locations in that region. That's kind of one of the main ways that you can get points at the end of the game. The other way to get points is to have your little discs in various different regions. And you can see there's a nice little chart here. So if you have discs in only 1 or 2 different regions, you're going to be getting 0 points. Where if you had a disc in all 8 regions, you will be getting 10 points at the end of the game. So that's the 2 main ways that you're going to score points. There's some other various different ways you'll score points during the game, which we'll go through, but that's kind of what your main aim is. Now there's a couple of decks of cards here. You've got these kind of marriage cards and these Viking cards over here. These are going to come out round over round and kind of set the stage for that round. But you also have this big deck here of these blue cards, and these are the cards that players are going to be dealt and draft and then play over the course of a round. So depending on how many players there are, you're going to deal out a certain number of cards to each player, and then you're going to start drafting them. So let's say we have an initial hand of cards. You're going to keep 2 and then pass to the left, and then get other cards from the player to the right, and then you're going to keep 2 from them, keep 2 and pass, keep 2 and pass. And then you're going to start, and you're going to randomly determine the start player to start at the very start of the game. And then they're going to pick basically a color that matches one of these different locations. So maybe this location here, this red one, I want to try to control that, or at least put it into play. I don't necessarily have to want to control it. Sometimes you don't want to. But then you have to play a card matching that. So to do that, you go and place a ring over the little town there that you want to control. And then the player that does that is the only one that has to match the color with the card that they play. So I have to play a red card. Now going around the table, let's say we were playing a 3-player game. They could, if they want, match the suit, but they don't have to. They can play any card they want. So maybe the next player plays a yellow 1, and then the final player, let's say we're playing a 3-player game, plays a white 22. Now it is worth noting that the white color cards are wild. They are effectively every color. And so what you're going to look at once all the cards have been played, you're going to look at the highest value card that matches the color there. So the highest red here is a 15. There's no other reds in play, but the white here is a 22, and that's a wild, so that's actually going to trump and beat that 15. So the winning player in this case is going to be the player that played the white 22. They're going to activate the top portion of this card, and I'll explain what these icons do in a second. Everybody else, the other 2 players, are going to activate one of the bottom portions of their card. So you have kind of 2 choices here on each of these cards. You can either get 3 gold and then buy a new location, or move up 2 spots on the marriage track, for example, where this guy could get a coin, buy a location, and then get 3 Vikings. Some of these cards only have 1 option on the bottom. So if you quote unquote lose the trick, you just have that option. Always the winner is going to get control of that location. That's what that icon means. So if this card had 1, then they would take control of that location. They would put one of their colored discs, let's say they were purple, they would control it. But then of course it will also cost them a coin. For example, the card we used in our previous example here, they would get control of the location, but it'll cost them 2 coins. Anytime you have to pay a coin and you can't, you have to lose 2 points. And so everybody starts at the 10-point mark on the scoring track there, because it is possible to lose some points, at the very beginning of the game. So play's just going to proceed from there. Whoever actually won the location took control of it, they're going to take the pink ring. They're going to pick any other spot over here. So maybe they'll pick this yellow one over there. They have to, of course, lead with a yellow card there. And then everybody else can play whatever card they want. Again, the highest yellow wins. So if we played it in this case, and these were the 3 cards that were played, even though this is the number 1, which is the lowest card in the whole deck, then that player is going to win the yellow location and activate the top part of the card. The other 2 players here will activate the bottom portion of their card. And it's worth noting that the cards go from 1 to 25. There's no duplicates. So there's no like red 1 or blue 1 or white 1. The number 1 is always yellow, and the highest card here is the blue 25. That's the highest card in the deck. And so after you play, the game maybe once or twice, you're going to get to know the deck and kind of see, what's what. And you do know if it's a blue and you're playing the blue 25, you're guaranteed to win that because there's no other higher card in the deck. And before I forget, there's this quick strategy tip. If you were to do this and you didn't have the money to take control of that location, you don't necessarily want to keep this card towards the end of the round because you might actually be forced to take control of that location and spend money you don't have, which again, will lose you some points. So let's just take a quick look at a couple of card examples and you get the general idea here. So for example, if you win with this card, you control the location, cost you $2. If you lost with the card, you would get $1. And then you can pay $5. This part is optional. You don't have to do this paying $5 part, but you can pay $5 to build in a spot adjacent to yours. So if the green player did that, if you can draw a road or a sea path or something like that to the adjacent spot, then you can pay the $5 and then connect there. So that's another way that you can get these discs out. You don't necessarily have to win the location that's in play. You can get some money, engine stuff going, and then start to build out adjacently. Now the next thing here is you can actually put discs out into the church spot. So there we had the 3 icons. We could put 3 discs out here into the church spot, and then we're going to resolve control of that at the end of the round. Now anytime you put stuff into the church, you can always pay $2 per disc you want to put in above the additional and the initial cost here. So you get 3 out for free basically, but anytime you put anything out here, you can pay $2 per. So if I wanted to pay $4 more, I could throw 2 more in there to kind of double down on that. And the next card here, obviously you win the location, but you actually gain money for doing that. This one again, $2, and you get to build a connecting location. Here you're going to move up 2 spots on the marriage track. So when you do that, let's say we're the purple player, you go boom, boom, 2 spots. And like the church, you can spend $2 per additional spot. So if we spend another $4, we could go up 2 more spots. Now it's worth noting here that if, let's say the purple player went first, because you're going to resolve these cards in ascending order no matter what, who won or who lost, you're going to always resolve whatever effect that's being applied in the ascending order of all the cards that are played. And that can be actually very important and maybe change your decision based on what the previous player did. So let's say purple went up 2 spots, and then blue had the same thing. He got 2 spots on the marriage track. So he's going to go 1, 2. If you ever stop on a spot where there's somebody else, you're going to drop down to the previous spot behind them. And let's say in this case green got 2 moves on the track, there you go 1, 2, they're going to drop all the way back to the beginning, so that's a total waste. Now again, if they could maybe spend an extra $2. So they got the 2 movement, if they had $2 to spend, they could spend that and then they would be fine right there. And we'll talk about how to resolve all these different marriage and church stuff here in a minute. Now again here, conquer, build adjacent, or you can collect Viking tokens. So when you collect Viking tokens, you'll just take them out of this pile here and you'll take them and put them in front of you. These were dealt out based on the card that was flipped at the start of the round. So there'll be a new sort of supply of Vikings here that are trying to invade Ireland at the start of every round. And I'll talk about how to resolve that, but again, you can pay $2 above and beyond the initial amount that you collected, and it's $2 per Viking that you want to collect additionally. And there's one final card here, the Brian Boru card, and he has a symbol on here that's not on any of the other cards. He's the only one with this symbol here, and this allows you to remove a Viking control token from one of your towns. So I'll show you how this will happen in a minute, but if you have a Viking control token off of one of your towns, you might want to remove it. And so you can pay $1 and remove that. So you can see here, if you do this effect here, remove that and pay $1. So you're gonna go round over round playing all your cards in your hand, and once everybody's done playing cards, we're gonna have different discs out here, people taking control of different locations through various different means. And then once we are done, You're going to then resolve here the marriage track, the Vikings, then the church, and then check kind of area control of the different regions. And then you're going to play a certain number of rounds based on the number of players, and you're going to deal out a certain number of these marriage cards in this deck based on the number of players, but at the bottom is always going to be this double-sided card of Estrid, who's like the Viking princess of Denmark. And so she's always going to be the last marriage, and that's going to signal the last round. And then you're going to resolve, again, the final area control, and then score points for the area control as well as the different regions and so on. So let's talk about how to resolve all these different tracks. Now let's say the marriage track was something like this here. So whoever's highest on this track is going to get the marriage card here. And in this case, you can see they're going to get 2 points for that card, and then they can put a control token anywhere they want in this particular region here, Leinster. So they would put a control token out there. Now the next round, whoever won this one would get 2 points, and they could put a control token out there and so on. Now at the last round, you're going to get the Estrid. You're going to have to choose which side you want to activate her on. You can either establish trade, or you can do military support, or you can just discard her for 4 points. Now we're going to explain these two options, establish trade and military support, when we talk about endgame scoring, but just know that you can do that. Now what's going to happen is whoever wins the marriage, in that case, they're going to drop all the way to the bottom. Everybody else is going to stay exactly where they are. So they're going to be ready and primed to win probably the next round. But they're also going to get kind of a little consolation prize down here. You can see if you get up a certain height, you get $1. If you get $2 up here, you'll get a renown token, or you can actually put a control token on any spot on the board that you wish there. But again, you're going to stay put for the next round. Now next you're going to resolve the Vikings. Now if these are cleared out, nothing necessarily bad is going to happen because everybody's kind of satisfied the Viking invasion. But let's say you have even just one left in here at the end of the round. Then whoever has the most Viking tokens, let's say I've got 4, and then Billy has 1 or 0, then I am going to place and choose one of Billy's towns to put a Viking token on. Now there's some other different rules which I'm not going to get into with tiebreakers. Some people are tied for the most or tied for the least and so on. But effectively, a Viking token is going to come out and it's going to cover somebody's city piece. Now this is effectively a non-existent city. It's under Viking control. Nobody controls it. It's not going to contribute to area control until possibly the very end of the game, which we'll talk about. But this is what's going to happen there. Now once you resolve that, then whoever has the most Vikings is going to discard all their Vikings, and then you're also going to remove all the Vikings, if there were any there, from the main spot. Then in that case, whoever had the most is going to get a renown token. Now you start the game with 1 renown token, and so once you get one, you're going to score all the renown tokens you have. So if I just got a third one, for example, I would get 1, 2, 3 points for that. So you get the renown, and then you score all the renown you had previously, along with the new one. And then everybody else that has the most Vikings, whether it's 1 or more people, let's say there was 2 people like tied for 2 Vikings, each of them is going to discard 1 of their Vikings, no matter how many they had, and then they're going to score 1 point. But they're going to retain those Vikings for the next round. The only person that's going to discard any is the person that initially had the most. Then you're going to resolve the church. Whoever has the most discs in the church is going to take one of these monastery tokens here. They're going to put it around one of their towns here, with their discs. This is now going to actually count as having 2. So in this case, in this region, purple now has 3 total towns because this counts as 2. They're going to clear off all of their discs. They're also going to get the pink disc, so they will be leading tricks the next round. And then everybody else is going to clear off 1 disc, and they're going to get 1 victory point. And then if at that point, anybody has 4 or more tokens at that point, then they will also get to put out a monastery and then clear their discs out. But if they don't have 4 or more, then they're just going to remove 1, get a point, and then they're going to leave some in there for the next round. Then after resolving the church, you're going to resolve the different regions. Just going to work the regions here. So you can see Munster says we need 5 towns total. And then if there is 5 towns, controlled by different players, we're going to activate this. Now, if somebody has the most towns, they're going to give them this, and this will, if they can hang on to it by the end of the game, they will get 7 points. Now, if it's tied, let's say, we've got 6 towns activated, which is more than 5, but each player has 3, then it will activate. It's just going to sit right here because nobody actually controls it. Now, if I get it and it comes to me, then I have it. If somebody ties me, it's not going to leave my possession at the end of the next round because it's not going to move unless somebody has control. So you have to pass me to get it. And if you pass me during the round and then I tie it back up, again, it's not going to go anywhere because this is only going to get resolved at the end of the round. So you're going to go through all of these different ones here. You can see Connacht is 5 threshold and then 7 points. And you've got smaller ones here. So in Briefen, you only need 2 towns and it's only worth 3 points. So you're going to do all that stuff. And then again, at the end of the last round, you're going to, again, award points for those and award points for all of the different regions that players have their discs in based on this little chart here. And players will also score renown. The player with the most money will get a point. And finally, the one thing that's going to happen here in this last resolution here of this marriage track is when whoever kind of wins the hand of Estrid, if they didn't spurn her, then for 4 points, then they're going to either choose to establish trade or they're going to choose to activate military support. And what that means is simply, no matter who initially had control of a Viking controlled town, the person that tied the knot here with Estrid, those towns become under the possession of them for the purpose of either military support or establishing trade. And what that means is simply you can either score Viking towns for control of regions or different regions. So you can activate Viking towns for either one of the 2 endgame scorings. Either you can activate it to try to give yourself a leg up here, or for, you know, having a wide spread there. But you do that before going into and activating the Vikings. So there's some real kind of negotiation and kind of back and forth a little bit there on some of that stuff. And that's it. You just keep playing around. There's a different number of rounds based on the number of players. You get a certain number of cards each round. But effectively, you're kind of playing the same number of tricks no matter if you're playing 3, 4, or 5 player game. And whoever has the most points and did the best at the area control is the winner. Okay, so that is Brian Boru. Let's jump into my 3 pillars of review. First, we'll talk about player count. I've only played it with 3 and 4 players. I haven't played it with 5 yet. I don't really know out of those 2 player counts which I like better. I think probably 4, but it's hard to say. I think it does scale. I'd be interested to try it with 5. I'll talk more about this in kind of the more reviewy part of this. The time on the box says 60 to 90 minutes, and that seems about right. I don't think you're going to get too much higher than 90 minutes, even with a 5-player game, because effectively you're playing kind of the same number of hands, because you have less cards dealt out to each individual player, but you play a few more rounds with 5 players versus 3. The 2 games that I played of it with 3 and a 4 player, they were just over an hour, so not too much further than that. Again, and I think I kind of liked it with 4 more because this is kind of a little bit more dynamic, I thought. Now, if I had to compare this to other games, you might immediately say, well, let's look at some other area control games. You might look at like Ankh or El Grande or Tammany Hall, stuff like that. Maybe The King is Dead even, which is one of his previous games. But then you have that kind of sort of trick-taking aspect, although I really think people should kind of throw that out because it's kind of just a card-driven engine kind of thing. Because again, you don't really have to follow suit. You're not trying to get people to run out of cards. You're not trying to run out of certain colors necessarily, although there's like a tiny bit of that. Really, it's its own kind of like little card engine, and I really don't know how to put it other than that. Because once you kind of know, what, okay, the highest card is the blue card, that's the 25, there's a red 24, and I think it's a white 23, and the yellow cards tend to be a little bit lower. And what you're really doing is trying to play tactically around what's happening on the board. Because there's a lot of times where we're like, well, if I just kind of lose a bunch of these, I'm going to get some money, and then I'll be able to just kind of grow my little empire of cities based on adjacent roads and kind of grow out that way and not worry so much about actually winning the top part of the card. But in other cases, you want to do that because you want to get control of the control token because you're like, I want to dictate what's being played now for a little bit, so I'm going to try to win this one. And then you're trying to, move up the marriage track, get the Vikings, go to the church to get the monastery token, which will beef up one of your cities. And so you're kind of trying to play through this sort of web of what all the other players are doing and that stuff, and trying to, keep some money flush and that kind of thing. Because if you are kind of forced to play a card at the end of the round, which is going to cost you money, you're going to win, you're going to lose some points, you don't want to do that. And you want some extra money to either grow through adjacency, like I said, or spend that extra money to get that extra Viking to move that extra step up the marriage track. So kind of managing your economy in a way is very important that way. Now, I will say that the game is supremely engaging, and there's a lot more to this than meets the eye, I think. I'm saying that now because I want to caveat just a tiny bit that I think there could be a certain level of frustration with being able to kind of do what you want, because if you don't like get any red cards in the draft, or you don't get any of the blue cards or whatever, then you're kind of hosed out of the Vikings. Let's say if you don't have any red cards, you're just not going to get any Vikings, and if you don't have any yellow cards, you're just not going to move up the marriage track. But not doing that in one round out of any is not the end of the world, because the next round, like let's say you moved up 1 or 2 spots or got 1 or 2 Vikings, you're going to have kind of the leg up a little bit going into the next round. So you have to be kind of planning for that long game. So you don't really score any points right at the end of the round, because you're just kind of checking control, and then okay, somebody gets the marriage, and then there's a couple of points here and there with the Vikings and stuff, and then using the church. That's not really the majority of your points. The majority of points are going to come at the end of the game. So you have to be kind of with an eye towards that long haul. Now, that being said, I have seen a little bit of frustration with some players like I literally didn't win a single trick this whole round, that kind of thing. So, but there are ways around that. So there is some nuance there that I think you have to kind of say, oh, there's another way I can do this. I can just generate a money engine and try to grow out that way. Okay, cool. Somebody put a Viking on one of my towns, but this round I got like 6 new towns out, or whatever the thing is. So you have to kind of approach the game and see it from all the different angles, and kind of, I think you got to play it once or twice to see how it all kind of unfolds, and really the dynamism of the Princess of Denmark, Estrid, and how that marriage can kind of inform that last round, because having those Vikings out may actually, even if they're all in your cities, if you can score that last marriage, that just might give you the game right there, because you were able to kind of swing the relationship in a completely different way, and those towns become yours anyway. Or maybe Billy has his towns covered up, and then Francesca, she gets the thing, and those will kind of swing it the other way. But then that last marriage is going to kind of inform that last Viking decision, and that's going to inform people like, well, maybe I don't want to take Vikings because then this person will have the most. And so you're kind of like calculating all these kinds of things, especially in that last round. So that can get a little bit kind of, I think it's cool, but I think a lot of people can be that would kind of burn some people out a little bit. It would be kind of like a grindy sort of thing. Well, if you take this Viking and then this happens and I can get up here and then do this. And so there's a little bit of that. There's not a ton. I don't want to oversell that, but I think there could be a certain level of frustration for that kind of thing. But to me, the thing that sells this, and I'm going to keep this in my collection, you're probably seeing in a video here towards the end of the year, that it's very, very ingenious kind of thing, because the simplicity of the card play and everything kind of wrapped up into that. Like, do I want to win this or lose this? Can I try to win this? Can I try to lose it? Even though maybe it's a suit that I'm going to play, like even if I'm leading and I put the token out, I'm like, okay, I'm playing red. I don't want to win this. I want to activate the bottom, so I'm going to play a low red. But everybody else might be like, well, you can win it. Well, I didn't want to win it, So there's that kind of funness of it. But the simplicity of just playing the card, if you win, you get the location and some gold, or it costs you some gold. And then the bottom is like you get something on one of the 3 tracks. And then looking at the order of operations of like, if I play a low card, I'm going to move up the princess track first, and I can get the top spot, and I'm going to lock in this marriage. Or maybe I don't. I just want to creep up in that second to last round and try to set myself for the final round where it's really important. And theoretically, now the princess is not always going to be important, but there's certain games where it will be. But all of that kind of stuff is baked into this very simple, I play a card, you play a card, and so on. And it's very, very elegant in that way. So I definitely recommend folks at least try the game. I don't think this is going to be for everybody, but I really did enjoy it. But it's not like a trick-taking game. It's trick-taking in a way, but it's like a card-driven area control game, like a Twilight Struggle or something like that. That's a very banal sort of comparison, and probably a terrible comparison. But it's just card-driven game. It's card-driven, it's not trick-taking. You're sort of setting the stage with the initial suit of like what's happening and where it's happening. But it's not about trick-taking. It's about playing around the dynamics of that card. All right, so that's Brian Boru. Definitely recommend folks at least give it a try, but I really enjoyed it. Very very, very sublime type experience. Thanks.